Hey, this is Will Buchanan. I'm walking all the way across the country to the New Hampshire seacoast in search of more freedom on a project called the Walk for Liberty. Today is December 17th, 2008, day 214. This is the first day I've been back to walking since crossing into New Hampshire 3 days ago. The arrival celebration at the New Hampshire border was incredible. Somebody had counted that about 48 people were able to make it, and I was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. Then on Monday afternoon, we drove up to Vermont to retrieve our stranded RV. We had been worried that we had killed the engine, but fortunately all we had to do was reconnect a hose, fill it back up with oil, and it seemed fine. So here we go. Since arriving in New Hampshire, we've been hosted by two very nice and generous couples, Kurt and Auburn, and Lauren and Jim. And then last night, we attended a very lively weekly gathering called Taproom Tuesday, which is held at Murphy's Tap Room in Manchester. One thing I've discovered since getting to New Hampshire is that there are so many interesting people to get to know and to talk to that it's been hard for me to get back to my routine of getting stuff done. I guess that's a good problem to have, at least for the time being, since I do enjoy it. One other thing I observed, which kind of surprised me, was that I found I couldn't really effectively process everything that had happened until I got back out to walking again. Speaking of those interesting people I was mentioning earlier, I'm walking for a little bit with Baron Swearingen, who's the president of the Free State Project.
Yep. Greetings to all of you who are watching. We're in Keene, which is where I live. I moved here in 2004, and last night I was at Murphy's Tap Room with Will, and he said he was walking through Keene today. I said, where? And the first thing he mentioned was the street I live on. So I thought I'd come out and take a little walk with him today.
Thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sure you're enjoying the company, I hope.
Yes.
And if you're not, you wouldn't tell anybody. So this is Keene, and a lot of Free State Project participants have moved here, and pretty much all of us who have like it. There have been a few that are not terribly fond of the Keene city government, but I suppose that might be true anywhere.
I understand there's a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's true here. It's true all over in towns and cities, especially in the southern half of the state where most of the people live. And it's true, of course, really in the whole state of New Hampshire, being under the influence of the state government and the federal government. But that's why we're here.
Baron, could you tell me how you discovered the message of liberty in your own life?
Actually, that's interesting. The surface story is that my dad was a big influence in my understanding that, but there's a story behind the story. Back in the early 1980s, my dad was introduced to a guy by the name of Marshall Fritz, who's fairly well known in the pro-liberty movement. Marshall Fritz was the founder of the Advocates for Self-Government and the Alliance for Separation of School and State. And he and my dad met prior to doing any of that. So that friendship developed over time, and Marshall was able to present the idea of libertarianism in a way that very easily and quickly clicked for my dad. He was already subconsciously aware that there was something he didn't understand that was not quite right. And when Marshall explained the very basic premise of freedom, he immediately recognized, yeah, that's it. And, or very quickly anyways. That blossomed into a lifelong friendship for Marshall. He passed away about a month and a half ago. And in the intervening years, he started the Advocates for Self-Government back in the 1980s. And then a little-known project between the Advocates for Self-Government and the Alliance for Separation of School and State. He started a school, an actual school, with students ranging from ages about 5 or 6 through high school. That school was called Pioneer Christian Academy, and the idea that he was pursuing didn't work out, but the school operated for a year and a half. It had a grand total of 3 graduates, high school graduates, and I'm one of those 3. So not only was my dad very influential, but Marshall Fritz was influential, both indirectly through my dad and directly, especially during that time when he was essentially my school principal. And so I guess that's a bunch of the story of how I became exposed to it and fairly thoroughly, you might say, educated in the ideas of liberty.
So you got it pretty young.
I got it young and hard and long and every which way. And that's been a good thing. It's very easy to get sidetracked and to get off track and to let bad philosophy, wrong philosophy, squeeze into the cracks. But being surrounded by people like that on a very regular basis enabled me to learn early on how to test what I was hearing from friends and the media and so on and so forth against that philosophy, which I believe to be good. I believe that's correct. The idea that it's wrong to initiate aggression against other people, even if you work for the government.
So a surprisingly large crowd that's having lunch with us as we're passing through Keene. We have several more walkers now.
There's snow here. And if you don't do anything with snow, you're just going to curse it. And instead of cursing it, take up steam or toboggan.
We're walking through Keene, New Hampshire. I walked 13.9 miles for liberty today. Here's where we walked to today. If you do any of your shopping online, please consider purchasing through amazon.walkforliberty.com. And a percentage of your purchase price will go to support the Walk for Liberty. Amazon, Amazon, Amazon.walkforliberty.com. This is Will Buchanan, signing off. This is in the newspaper rack of a little grocery store.